Pat, you are live.
Welcome diveLIVE family to another live dive here at Casuarina Point, Grand Cayman. My name is Pat and I'm your underwater biologist today. We have Rian on camera and on the surface we have Lauren from Scotland.
Thank you, Pat.
I am starting on the hard pan bottom today, just for something a bit different. The last time we did have some people asking whether we could show them some of the juvenile species out here. So I'll have a bit of a look around here on my way out to the reef. We'll still be going out to the reef, but thought I'd mix it up a bit and start somewhere shallow.
Sounds exciting. So what do you mean by shallow, Pat? How exactly deep are you?
So, that's a very good question, thanks Lauren. I am at 4 meters depth, so only 15 feet down.
Okay.
And I'm only about 50 meters offshore, or 200 feet offshore at the moment. And we can see that this habitat is dominated by these sea fans here. So, I apologise to everyone. Rian can only hear the surface presenter today. He can't hear me. So I'm going to have to, well, me and Lauren are going to have to work together to
yeah, I might have to jump over Pat a couple of times so that Rian can hear. So we do apologise if there is any audio issues in your end, but let us know. We are working on it. So Pat, what do you hope to see in the shallows?
Well, there are actually quite a few nurse sharks that are seen here on the shallows. Quite often we will actually see them swimming right off the dock. So hopefully we can get a sleeping nurse shark. Oh, there's also some very, very huge, and I mean huge, rainbow parrotfish that also scour this area for food. So hopefully we can run into one of those as well.
Sounds very exciting. Craig is actually asking if we see any octopus. And there is octopus here, but we haven't seen any yet during a live dive. So since Pat is in the shallows, fingers crossed, we might see one.
Yes, that would be unreal. They are beautiful animals, but also extremely elusive creatures. And yeah, we haven't even seen one on a non-live dive here yet, let alone a live one. So, but we'll always keep our eyes on the lookout. And now, what I wanted to show you earlier is you can see these sea fans are all being battered here because there is a bit of surge or a bit of surf around today. And this is why there are so many sea fans in this area, because as wave energy gets more and more shallower, it begins to increase. So when we get into this hard pan zone here, we can see these gorgonians are really confident, but their structure is made to deal with this, so it actually benefits them. They will filter food coming in front of it out of the water, and that's how they get their food, by sitting in this high surge zone. And they will always be facing perpendicular to the current, because this obviously is going to prevent them from breaking and increase the amount of surface area exposed to the food that is incoming.
Yeah.
And you'll also notice, if we can see these two here, they're both facing the exact same direction. And this is the same for every single sea fan. There's literally hundreds here on this hard pan zone.
Yeah, Rian's given us a good look at those sea fans, and they are moving about in the surge. So a few people have commented that it looks really strong. It isn't necessarily the current that you're seeing, it's the surge from the wave action. So it is a little bit choppy here today, but we're getting a perfect view of those sea fans moving in the surge. So I did see some squid earlier, Pat, in the shallows, so I really hope you can find them for us.
Sorry, what did you say, Lauren?
I saw some squid earlier in the shallows, so I hope you can find them for us.
Yes, most definitely. I would love to see a squid or two as well. And I suppose they're the closest thing to an octopus we could also see on the reefs here.
Yeah, very closely related, squid and octopus. So
and Rian has just notified me that he can hear me now, so that's great.
Perfect. So Rian can hear both of us. Great news. So Pat, we do have a general question about coral bleaching, if you're happy to answer that while looking in the shallows.
Yeah.
How does bleaching happen and what are the long-term effects? And this is from Hank.
That's a great question. So, we'll try and find, here's a nice bit of coral here that we can use as an example. So this little star coral just here. So, bleaching is when a coral like this becomes completely white and only the skeleton is left. And this happens because there is a symbiotic algae that lives within the coral. So it's not actually a part of the coral, so to speak, but it lives inside of it. And this algae is photosynthetic, which means it uses the sunlight for its energy. So they need sunlight to grow. And what happens is the algae harvests some of this energy that is produced by the algae and uses it for its own growth. So when the conditions inside become too much for the algae to handle, the corals will expel it. And this is generally due to a raise in sea surface temperature, or just sea temperatures in general, among other things, other stressful external environmental factors. So it will expel this algae, and then the algae won't be inside of it, so it won't be able to produce nutrition for the coral. So the coral starts to die, and because the algae is usually what gives it its colour, it goes white, and there will only be a skeleton of the coral left behind.
Great explanation, Pat, and thank you for that question, Hank. Linda is asking if that is tumbleweed rolling about in the ocean there, and actually it's not. It's Padina algae, and I am a bit of a fan of algae, so I won't go into the details, but it's just algae that's attached to the bottom, and it is the Padina species. So many of you earlier were asking about juvenile fish. Where do we see the juvenile angelfish or the juvenile tangs? And it is normally in these shallows that the very, very small juvenile fish are hiding for safety from the big predators. So Pat, if you see any little juveniles out there, make sure you point them out.
Juvenile what, sorry?
Any juvenile reef fish.
Oh yeah, for sure, most definitely. So actually a lot of the fish here seem to be not adults, but all mature females or males. So far.
Yeah, we can see some very small fish there. Oh, a little sharp-nosed pufferfish, I think. It's very small. Maybe under 10 centimeters, I think. And Pat, Chris is asking about the water temperature today.
Sorry, Lauren, I cannot hear you.
Okay.
At all.
We're just working on that. Bear with us. Can you hear me now?
You're still very, very quiet. Sorry.
Okay, our tech expert Peter is working on it. Once again, please bear with us. I'm not able to answer that question, Chris, because I am not underwater, but normally the temperature ranges just between 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is between 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So Pat, can you hear me better now?
Slightly, yes. I'll just have to concentrate my hardest.
Not a problem. I think everybody understands.
Yes, I do apologise, everyone, but well, I can hear Lauren a little better now, and please don't let this stop you from sending in any questions that you might have. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure that you use the hashtag diveLIVE so we can see your questions. And Lauren, we've found our squid.
Yes,
there and so many right here.
And Noriko is asking about the small striped fish. So I think they might have been either the cleaner wrasse or the juvenile parrotfish. Oh, squid!
Yeah, so there's a school of squid right in front of us. There's probably Oh, Jesus, heaps of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Wow, how many, Pat? How many?
I reckon about 20 in this little area right here. They're all sitting there watching us, and it's almost as if they know who we are and what we're doing, because squid, funnily enough, have very similar shaped brains to what humans have. They have 2 hemispheres, so 2 sides, just like our brain. And even though we're evolved completely separately from squid, the brain structure is still the same, which is pretty amazing. They're extremely intelligent animals, and they're just one of those species that they are watching you as intently as you're watching them, and you can just tell that they're as curious about us as we are of them.
Yeah, they're just absolutely incredible. We can see a whole school of squid in front of us right now. And squid are actually abundant in all oceans of the world. And there's about approximately 40 species known to live along the west coast of North America alone. So these are the Caribbean reef squid.
Now, something really interesting about squid is that they actually are one of the few species that is responding well to, well, not singular species, but one of the only squids that is responding well to climate change. So there's been studies that have shown that in recent years, when there's been climate change events, that squid numbers, and cephalopods in general, cephalopods being octopuses, squid and cuttlefish, they have actually, their populations have kind of skyrocketed in relation to global warming and rising sea temperatures.
Oh, so there's a pair of squid ahead, and this most likely is a mating pair. So throughout the squid's life cycle, they will take on different habitats. So when they're very, very, very young, they will hide in the really shallow waters in amongst the vegetation. Once they get older, they will go into much deeper waters. And when they're ready to mate, they actually come onto the coral reefs between about 1 to 8 meters, and they signal that they're ready to mate. So this is probably what these squids right now are doing. Then they're incredibly voracious predators. They typically consume about 30 to 60% of their body weight daily. So they have these tentacles, that they also have much longer tentacles that can grab food and send it to the mouth, where they have a really, really sharp beak which can cut the prey up into parts.
Now, one thing that many people might not know about squid is that they are actually mollusks. So mollusks are the phylum that include bivalves like clams and oysters, and your gastropods like sea snails and abalones, and also squid. So they have evolved quite a bit more than your usual mollusks, but they still have that shell internally inside the top section of their head there.
Yeah, they call this the mantle, and actually when a squid or a cuttlefish dies, you can actually see the mantle bone washed up in the beaches. Oh, it's all happening in the shallows.
Yeah, this is great.
So one amazing fact that I learned about squid was the body ratio to the eye. So the eye to body ratio is one of the largest in the animal kingdom. They have huge eyes in comparison to the size of their small body.
Sorry, can you please repeat that, Lauren?
Sorry, we're still just working on these audio issues. I was just saying that squids have the largest eye to body ratio in the animal kingdom.
Wow, that is unreal, but also not surprising. They do have very, very big eyes, and geez, you can imagine how big the eye on a colossal squid would be. So colossal squid can get up to 14 meters long, or 50 feet.
Yep, so this is a group of squid and they're really social animals. So they are often found in groups and they're communicating through a huge array of signals. And they communicate by controlling the pigment in their skin. So they can change their colors really rapidly to send a message to one another, such as, hey, I'm ready to mate, or I'm a boy, I'm over here, or alarm. So a lot of them go pale white when they're really alarmed by a predator, and they will ink and then dash off so no one can find them.
Yes, they are very, very fascinating. And just on that colour change, so they do this by special cells called chromatophores. So these chromatophores they're cells that are filled with pigments and muscle fibers and are surrounded by muscle fibers. So when these muscle fibers contract or expand, the pigment inside the cells gets the orientation in the light is different. So they'll reflect light differently and therefore a different colour. So to change colour, all they have to do is tense these muscle fibers. So as quickly as you and I can tense our muscles, that's how quickly these squid can change their colours. Now underneath those chromatophores, they have two different sets of cells that both reflect different colours as well. So they can also use this to even further change that array and that spectrum of colours that they can produce.
It's just incredible, isn't it? Proud Cat Mama is actually asking, how often do squid mate? Now that is a really interesting question because squids are known to be semiparous. And what this means is that the females, once they lay their eggs, the same as octopus, they die immediately afterwards. So their main purpose on life is to reproduce. The males, however, they can fertilize many females in a short period before they die, but they do not have long lifespans. So once the females lay their eggs in well-protected areas, they will then die themselves.
Yes, it's a bit sad, but that's just how life goes in the animal kingdom. And I have actually heard squid being referred to as the rock stars of the ocean. They live fast, they die young, and they leave a lot of unguarded children in the process.
Pat, I love that. Never heard that before. I absolutely love that. And it's a really interesting mating ritual as well because the male will compete with probably about between 2 to 5 other males. It's a big competition for the female, and it is normally the largest male that does win. And he will approach the female and gently stroke her with his tentacles. And she will not be too happy at first, probably indicate lots of alarm. But then he will calm her down by blowing jets of water at her. It's very romantic. And once she is calm, he will return and she will accept him. And then he will attach a sticky packet of sperm to her body. So romance in the ocean is in full bloom with the squid. Oh, Pat, that's great. You and the squid.
I'm absolutely loving this. So squid are so placid there. Quite often relaxed around divers, and I think this just comes from their sheer intelligence.
Oh, we got a great view of one right now, and just a reminder to everyone, this is a Caribbean reef squid. So they're very common around the reefs of the Caribbean.
And as Lauren mentioned, they do produce ink as a bit of a defense. And now this ink actually has been found to contain a huge amount of dopamine in it. And dopamine is the feel-good chemical that is released, say when you go for a run or when you do something that makes you feel good. So this hasn't actually been proven, but there is a little bit of a theory that when squids ink on its predators, then, or whatever's coming after it, then it may kind of, this dopamine may get them high in a way, so they get a bit dazed and confused.
Wow, so the other day, if any of you were watching, when I was diving, we did come across a huge area just covered in lots of squid ink. And it was probably produced by a school like this that all got scared at the same time, maybe by a much bigger predator, and they all released their ink into the water at the same time. And it does just kind of hang around in the water. Now, normally, octopus's ink is really, really black. And cuttlefish is kind of blue-black, but the squid's is a browny black, so you can really tell it's came from the squid. And it's mainly made up of melanin. And it's a great technique to get away from those big predators.
Yes, definitely. They have evolved to be advanced in just about every way of their lifestyle in terms of reproduction, their morphology, their intelligence, their defense. They really are such an fascinating creature.
Yeah, and Jeffrey from Texas did ask, can you tell the difference between male and female? And some other people did ask that as well. And to our visual eye, I don't believe you can, which is why they do signal that to each other through their colorations in their skin. They do signal whether they're male or female. And we obviously do not understand that. So it's been a success diving in the shallows.
Yeah, definitely. This has been a great start to the dive. This is probably the biggest school of squid I've seen since being here in Grand Canyon. They have been around, but not in these numbers.
How many would you say are there in total now?
So in this area, they're quite spread out, but I would say there's about 25 to 30 right now.
Wow, that's quite a big school of squid. And they're probably all ready to mate, which is why they're hanging out at these depths.
Yeah, so they'll be coming on some vibrant strays, trying to find themselves a nice mate.
Justin is asking, Pat, do squid see in colour?
Do squid see in colour? Well, yes, because colour change is such a vital part of their communication, then yes, of course, they would have to see in colour as well to recognise these changes. And as you can see, they've got these big, big eyes that are very quite advanced.
Yeah, so they're able to mimic the colours of their background to do these colour changes that we can see happening right in front of us. So we have a pair here. This could possibly be a male and a female signaling to each other that they are ready to mate.
Yes, they do seem to be swimming side by side. One is going very pale. Ooh, this could be quite exciting.
We're probably watching a very romantic moment here, so we're very privileged to be watching this.
Very much so. Unreal. So, see that their movements are very in sync right now, and this is generally a telltale sign that there is some sort of mating display going on. It's moving in synchronization. Yeah,
you're just following them along the reef, and you can see all the yellow fish, just for those wondering, they were the blue-lined grunts. But we're getting a great view of the squid's tentacles, the ones that are a little bit closer to the surface.
Oh wow, this colour change display is incredible.
Oh, I believe that was the male gently touching the female there. But I think it's a no-go from that female. She's not impressed.
Yeah. We're straight back into it. Speed dating squid right now.
So, like Pat mentioned, they are cephalopods, so they do belong to the 10-arm group. So they do have these 10 arms, if you like, with the torpedo-shaped body. But it's actually 8 short arms and 2 much longer tentacles. So we might not be able to see that, but it's the 2 longer tentacles that reach out to grab the food and bring it into their mouth. And we did mention previously that ambergris is a thing that is becoming quite common now. It is mainly whale vomit, sperm whale vomit. And it's when they cannot digest some food substances, they vomit it up and it floats on the ocean. And it is primarily made up of squid beaks because they are not able to digest this material, this really hard part of the squid. And this material, the ambergris, is really expensive. It's in demand in the pharmaceutical industry for perfumes, and it's mainly made up of squid beaks. Amazing.
That's really interesting. I never knew that before.
Oh, so we've got 3 in a perfect line here. They're all probably signaling a lot to each other that is beyond our comprehension.
So this male that we saw before try and mate with a female, and now he's gone off with another one, and I think they are going, it's going well for him this time. They're sitting side by side, moving very in sync.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Keep an eye on it, and hopefully we can see them mating.
That would be a great thing to witness. They can actually continue sort of dancing and courting and signaling to each other for up to 1 hour before the female will accept. So she really puts them through his paces. And sorry, there is quite a few aeroplanes going up ahead today above us. In case you wonder what that noise is, it is in fact an aeroplane.
It's not coming from down here. They haven't invented the underwater aeroplane yet.
So Pat, can you just remind everyone what depth you're at to be seeing this spectacular sight?
Yes, no, I have not moved very deep at all. I am at about 5 metres depth, just over 5 metres, so just over 15 feet, between 15 and 20 feet depth.
And you look like you're just reaching the reef crest there, so it's just starting to get deeper onto the coral reef.
Yes, that is correct. So, we might leave these squid be now. Hopefully they all find themselves a mate. And let's go onto the reef and see what we can see out there.
So what are you hoping to see out on the reef?
Well, I would like to see a big grouper today would be great. We have seen a few okay sized ones, so I think a really big one would be awesome. And it's been a while for me since I've seen a turtle, so I'd really love to get a turtle, even if it's just another horsebill. I'm keeping my eyes peeled for that.
Yeah, I was hoping for one this morning as well, so I really hope we see a turtle. And if there is anything any of you would like to see, just let us know with the hashtag diveLIVE and we will do our best to look for it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to fix up this cord. So I'll be quiet for a second.
So a lot of people were interested in the squid, and I've just had a backlog of questions about them. So maybe while we're swimming, you can try and answer some of these questions, Pat?
Sorry?
We've had a backlog of questions about the squid that didn't get through earlier.
Yeah.
So...
should we go back to the squid then?
No, just while you're looking, we can just answer some if you like.
Yeah, sure.
So Craig is asking what predators eat these squid. Did you hear that, Pat?
Sorry, I'm just trying to fix a cord tackle here. What was the question?
Not a problem, I can answer it. It was Craig is asking what predators eat these squid. So actually, squid are a favourite meal of a lot of animals, especially the bigger animals and nurse sharks, which I would really love to see today. They love munching on a squid. Even seals in colder waters love squid. So the bigger fishies, and especially sharks, they will enjoy a good squid meal.
Now, everybody, I'm just going to unplug my comms cable for 2 seconds just to fix up the cable, so I'm going to be silent for just a quick second.
Okay, so Celia has mentioned that it's difficult to hear Pat, and we are aware that we're having some audio issues. So if there's anything that you really didn't catch, just let us know, and I will do my best to repeat it. So Virginia did ask for Pat to hold out his hand to show us the size of squid. So once he's back on comms, I'll get him to show you exactly how big those squid were.
So are we going back to the squid?
We were just hoping Rian could put the camera on you and using your hands show us exactly how big the squid were.
Sure. So there were a few smaller squids, but most of the size range, so the average squid was about 30 centimetres long, so just about the length of a ruler.
And that's from the tip of the mantle to the ends of the tentacles.
Sorry?
I'm just repeating. A few people are struggling to hear you, Pat, so I'm just going to repeat the things that you say, okay?
Oh, yeah, no worries at all.
So a few people asked earlier, and Nikki is asking now, but you weren't able to hear us. What is the water temperature, Pat?
The water temperature, it is 27 degrees Celsius, so 81 degrees Fahrenheit.
So pretty warm.
Yes. It's still quite like a bath sometimes, although I didn't know this until the other day, but when you dive every single day, your body core temperature actually starts to naturally drop. So I've been wondering why I've been getting a little bit chillier towards the end of the dives, but it has not been because of the change in water temperature. It's just the response of my body to diving every day.
Wow, that makes so much sense. Everyone makes fun of me because I'm from Scotland and I just find these tropical waters so cold. But there you go, that's why.
Yes, so we take back any comments we may have given to you.
Pat, Heidi is asking to see a brain coral, so just if you spot one.
Yeah, definitely. So
Oh, Rian has spotted a beautiful brain coral, Heidi. There you go.
Oh, that's perfect. So it's a great example of a brain coral. There's no real question as to why they call them a brain coral. It's like it's been pulled straight down to someone's head.
So Marcy, happy birthday to your mum. Pass it on from us at diveLIVE.
Happy birthday from diveLIVE.
So yeah, we have a big brain coral right in front of us right now, and it's quite a big one, and from looking at it here, it looks completely healthy. So this will be made up of thousands and thousands of tiny little animals called polyps, and they will come together and make this structure. So you can see why a lot of people get confused. You know, what is coral? Is it an animal, a plant, or is it just a rock? Well, it is an animal, but we are not technically looking at the animals. The animals are hiding inside the skeleton, and what we are looking at is a big, beautiful brain-like skeleton made from calcium carbonate. So that was a perfect find for Heidi. She asked and we were able to find it for her. So brain corals are quite common around here, and you can see this is grown in the shallows, so this must be the perfect sort of habitat for it because it does need direct access to sunlight. So Pat obviously started in the shallows, so we were trying to show you a different environment, and we got lucky with those squid. And now he's slowly descending a little bit deeper towards the edge of the reef down to the sandy bottom. And we have another brain coral. I think Rian's spotting all the brain corals here.
Yes, he's quite a brainy guy, isn't he?
So Gebel the Rebel was asking, do the fish stop at the tip of a sponge to get a sip of the cleaner water? Now that is a really amazing question because the water that is filtered out of a sponge is extremely clean. So Rian, if you do see your favorite animal, the sponge, let's have a look. But no, the fish will not stop at the tip of a sponge for the cleaner water. That's a really good question, though. So it looks very murky today. I think that's the best way to describe it. But just like this morning's dive, the visibility is very low. So the water is very cloudy. It's filled with plankton, which is microscopic little animals, shrimps, crabs, jellyfish, even fish larvae, and also a lot of sediment. The weather was a bit stormy last night here in Grand Cayman, and I think all the sand has been stirred up, and that's what gives it this murky look. So Pat, how would you say the visibility is?
I would say it's about 15 metres of good visibility. So that means that about 15 metres or 45, 50 or 50 feet ahead of me, I can see very clearly. And then beyond that, it starts to get murky. And pretty much, I would say about 25 metres ahead of me, I cannot make out anything. So that's about 60 feet.
So we hope that the audio was better for you all. There is a slight hiss that unfortunately won't be fixed on this dive, but hopefully we have improved the audio of myself and Pat for everyone watching. Now Robert's asking you, Pat, how far offshore would you estimate that you are right now?
Sorry, how far offshore?
Yes.
Still not very far. So I started this dive at about 50 metres offshore, or 150 feet, and now I would say I am about 100 metres, so 320 feet offshore. But still not very far at all, considering we are doing a shore dive.
Yeah, I'm on the surface and I can see where they are underwater. It's really not far. So we are operating outside of Don Foster's Dive Centre, and they have this incredible reef just on their doorstep. They're so lucky. So all we need to do is jump in the water and we can show you all this wonderful marine life.
So we have Lauren's favourite fish here, a scrawled filefish.
Amazing. That is a scrawled or a scribbled filefish. They get called different names in different parts of the world. And this one looks quite big, but they are the biggest of all filefish. They can grow up to 100 centimetres. But this one, what size would you say it is, Pat?
So from the tail to its nose there, it's about 60, maybe 70 centimetres, so about 3 foot long.
You can see it just looking at us there. And these filefish just love to munch on the big purple crown jellyfish. We regularly see this, and normally you find them in a pair. There just seems to be one in front of us right now. But the filefish are a wonderful family, and they're very closely related to the triggerfish. And they themselves actually have a spine which comes up on their forehead that also resembles a trigger. And Sherry's commenting that it looks like he's got lipstick on, and yes it does. He's got these sharp teeth for biting into things, and it does look a bit like lipstick.
Now Laura, do you know why they're called filefish? That's something that's always been beyond me. I've never really known why they're called filefish.
I do, because they're my favorite. So they have very small scales on their body that we could probably not see unless we had a zoomed microscopic lens, and each of these scales have a tiny little spine on them. So a lot of fishermen back in the day would catch these fish, dry them in the sun, and use this hardened skin as almost like sandpaper. So they especially used it to polish off the wooden bolts. So that's where the name filefish comes from. So it seems completely not bothered by our presence, and it's just having a little feed on the reef. And it has this unique way of moving.
Sorry Lauren, to cut you off there, but we were speaking about juvenile fish here, and we actually have a yellow tang here, or a juvenile blue tang.
Yay, that's so exciting. What a find. Sorry, I got really excited there. We were just talking about them earlier, so you won't believe it, but this yellow fish that you can see right now, the name of it is actually the blue tang. because the adult form is completely almost navy blue. And if you look at the edges of this one's dorsal fin and ventral fin, you can see that it's tinged blue. So it's probably getting a little bit older and starting to change into an adolescence. Pat, great find. So I think it's this. Oh no, it's still there. And that's the thing with the juvenile fish. A lot of people ask to see them, but normally they're very, very small and they're very skittish. They do hide a lot in amongst the corals. They're waiting until they get a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. Oh, just to the left we have a blue tang, so you can show the comparison. If we yeah, there's the adult form right there. So together in the one shot we have an adult blue tang and a juvenile blue tang, which happens to be yellow. Great find, Pat.
Lauren, is it possible to have my audio turned up a bit? I can't hear you again.
Not a problem. Peter is working on that for you.
Thank you.
So while he's doing that, can we have an air check?
Yeah, of course. So, I've just hit 100 bar. So, still got a fair bit of climate left to do today.
So some of you might recognize this fish by the body shape and the sort of pursed lips at the elongated snout, and it was made famous by the movie Nemo. This is a similar fish to dory. Dory is also a surgeonfish, and the tangs belong in the surgeonfish family. So it is quite an easy recognizable shape, and these blue tangs are herbivores. So they do just constantly graze on the algae on the reefs.
Yes, they can do this in massive schools sometimes, and it's a great spectacle to see them come across and just shear the reef with any algae. So we might head over to the grotto a bit and try and have a look in and under the caves there and see if we can see some big tarpon or that big grouper that I've been on the lookout for.
Oh, I'd love to see a grouper. So James was asking which species of fish takes the longest to get its adult coloration. So that's quite a difficult question to answer because many different reef fish can be polychromatic, so they can have many different phases, and these different phases come at different ages and different sizes. So for example, the blue tang we just saw has 3 different color phases, and the first one is the juvenile yellow tang, which happens to be really, really small and yellow. And then it will develop into an adolescence when it gets a little bit older, and it will change color into a pale pastel blue. It isn't until it gets much bigger and it reaches the full size of an adult that it will be much, much darker blue. So it's a good question, but it's a difficult one to answer because it completely depends on the species and the conditions.
Excellent answer there, Lauren. Quite difficult to apply some of these things. Especially, when they have like different stages of their life where it's not really dependent on time, it's more dependent on when whether a dominant male is taken out of the ecosystem, and that can take quite a while, and you can't really put a number on that.
So Noriko, we were actually talking about Dory from Finding Nemo. That's the one we were referring to. So this is a fish that isn't actually a surgeonfish, but it's just commonly known as Dory from the movie. But it is in fact a royal blue surgeonfish, which is very closely related to the blue tang.
Now, can everyone notice just how much different the lighting is right here? That is because right now we are only at about 2 meters depth, so we're coming up over a coral body, and it is remarkably shallow, and it just shows how healthy these reefs are, that there's been that much accumulation of coral that we're literally swimming over are bobbing about 12 metres high.
Pat, we do have a question from Ian asking about the differences in identifying a wrasse compared to a damselfish. So maybe it would be great if you could point out some parrotfish or other wrasse and also a damsel.
So the difference between a wrasse and a damselfish?
Yeah, but it'd be great if you could point those fish out. Do you think that's possible?
So we actually have a very cool looking damselfish right here, the yellow-tailed damselfish. See if we get a shot of it. And it is actually right next to a wrasse, which is perfect. It looks like it's gone, but oh no, there's a damselfish here, so we are just in front of us here, that black, just here, behind you, just here.
Sorry, Pat, we're just doing some audio adjustments again.
That's alright.
So did you manage to point out a parrotfish there?
Yeah, so I was going to point out a damselfish. Right. So we wanted to compare a parrotfish and a...
Not compare, just show. Just identify a wrasse and a damsel from Ian.
Sure. So, right here in front of us, we have white and blue parrotfish and damselfish. So this parrotfish with a red belly here, this is a female stop-white parrotfish. The males are obviously quite a lot more vibrant and blue. And actually right next to it we have a damselfish. That black fish is a damselfish. Can you see that one?
Yes, we can. That was great. So you got to see the big wrasse, which is a huge family. It's one of the bigger families on the reef, which do include the parrotfish and the damselfish family. So completely different types of fish. One is very, very big and has a sharp fuse-like beak. And the damselfish are very, very small, very aggressive and territorial and very skittish. So they do often hide amongst the coral until they're ready to shout at you and tell you to go away.
Now we move off over this way. There is quite a large school of sergeant majors, and I believe that they are feeding on all the plankton in the water right now, but there's probably about 200 odd fish here.
Yeah, we can see them just ahead of Pat where he's swimming. There's a lot of fish, and these are the sergeant majors, which are also damselfish.
Correct.
And you can see them with the black bars running down their body. And Anne just asked for a sergeant major, so there you go. I think we now have about 100 for you.
Yes, there are so many right here. And I believe they're all sitting up high off the reef so they can take advantage of all this food that's stirred up in the water right now.
Yeah, that's great. Normally we only see one sergeant major guarding its territory or its egg patch, and here we can see hundreds. And they are very aggressive for their size. They're full of confidence, and they will tell you to go away if they're not happy with your presence. So for being such a small family of fish, the damselfish are incredibly territorial and aggressive. Wow, we're getting a really good view of all these fish, and you can see they've got quite a unique body shape that's true for all damselfish. They have quite a forked tail, quite streamlined, flat bodies, and they're very small in size. And can you tell us why they're called sergeant majors, Pat?
Yeah, so the bars, the black bars running along its body, these are like the sergeant major in the army, just like their marking, so that's where they got their name from.
Oh, there must be hundreds up there.
There are so many right now. So Now, as they're all schooling together for feeding purposes, we will say that they're a school. So there are two different words given to groups of fish when they're in an aggregation like this. A school is when they're doing it for feeding, and a shoal is when it's for social reasons, such as mating.
Yes, they do say that a quarter of all reef fish shoal for the best part of their life and a half shoal for part of their life. So most reef fish will come together at some point for some form of social aggregation. So the reason Pat probably knew that these sergeant majors are feeding is because normally they rarely leave their little territory. We rarely see them off the coral reef, but right now, because there is so much plankton in the water, they're above the reef and they're plucking out the plankton from the water column, so it's safe to say that they're all feeding. So Celia's asking just about the dive site. So just to remind everyone, Pat is just diving in front of Don Foster's Dive Centre at Casuarina Point.
Yes, and right now, a little bit to the right of Casuarina Point at Neville's Grotto, this site is called.
And we can see some tarpons.
Yes, that's how you know you're at the Neville's Grotto, because there's always tarpons here during the day.
Yeah, so there must be about 10 tarpons there?
Yeah, probably even more. Probably about 15, I reckon.
And what size approximately would you say they are?
So, they're averaging about a metre in length, so about 3 feet long. They are quite a large fish. And I believe the juveniles are even about 50 centimetres. They don't tend to be very small fish at all.
And I think you can actually see this from looking at them, but tarpon are actually from a really ancient lineage of fish, and I do think they facially do look a bit prehistoric, and they're from the megalops family, which loosely translates to large heads. And you can see where they get this from, and I often think they look very grumpy. They most likely are not, but they do have that sort of downturned mouth that gives them that grumpy look, and this is just a feeding strategy. So it's just a perfect way for them to swoop upwards into a big school of maybe silver sides and just eat them all up. So they do have really large scales, so fish don't lose scales or shed scales or replace them even. The scales get bigger as they grow older, and tarpon scales can reach up to 3 inches long.
Yeah, so it's very big. That's bigger than some species of fish will even get. And they also have a very interesting way of breathing. So, unlike other fish, they have adapted their swim bladder to actually inhale air. So sometimes we'll see them coming up to the surface and taking a gulp of air, which is incredible.
Yep, so most fish have a swim bladder, and all this is just an organ inside of them that is normally filled with oxygen, and it's used for buoyancy control. So anybody who dives also know that we have to control our buoyancy too, and that's why Pat is wearing that funny looking jacket. It is called a BCD, which stands for buoyancy control device. So Pat will have to inflate or deflate air at different depths in order to control his buoyancy. So
yeah,
fish...
I might even actually demonstrate that round if you want to put the camera on me for a second. So this pose here, it's got an inflator and a deflator. So if I inflate, I'll just put a little bit of air in and watch where I move. So I'm inflating and up I go. And now,
Bye!
if I deflate and let all that air out, down I come again.
Yeah, so that's Pat demonstrating how he controls his buoyancy, because unfortunately Pat does not have a swim bladder. but the fish do. So they use this organ, which is filled with oxygen, to control their buoyancy. And that is what Pat means, is that the tarpons can actually utilize the swim bladder as a pseudo-respiration organ. So they can also use it to breathe.
And I've also heard of tarpons not only being able to breathe air, but also being able to tolerate fresh water. So they've been found in freshwater rivers, kilometres inland, hundreds of kilometres inland. So they are really just the masters of all environments, these animals.
They are. And Kayan is asking, are they sleeping, Pat?
Are they what, sorry?
Sleeping.
One more time.
Sleeping.
Sleeping?
Yes.
They're not technically sleeping right now, but they are resting. So they are nocturnal animals, meaning they will hunt at night time. So they tend to hang out here in the darker areas of the Devil's Grotto during the day. And this allows them to slow down their metabolism and still recover. But as I said, they're not technically sleeping. They don't have eyelids that they can close. So they just rest very still and very silently.
So Hank was asking about predators to sharks. So the tarpons are definitely not the predators to sharks, but I think the sharks would probably eat these tarpons. But sharks don't have many predators. Some sharks eat other sharks, and normally animals like the orcas would be the only natural predator of the sharks. But unfortunately, if we did have to say, humans would be the main predator of sharks today. Oh, these tarpons are barely moving. They're just holding themselves in the water column. So Pat, we just have another air check from you.
Yes, I was literally just about to update everyone on that. I have hit 60 mark, so it's about time for me to wrap this up. But it was great to see a little bit of a different environment today and get down in the shallows and see all those squid. That was definitely a highlight for me. Thank you all for joining me again today. Thank you, Rihanna, and thank you, Laura. We will be here again tomorrow at 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. Grand Cayman time. And I hope you can all come for another dive with us. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Pat. And just apologies for the audio issue.